Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today has been one of those days where I am knackered, but I thought I needed to do a video, and today I thought why not do a tag video. So the tag coming to you is the 7 Ajahs tag. This is inspired by one of my favourite series, The Wheel of Time, and was created by Megan over at Megan's Reading Revelations. Check out a link to her video down below, as well as to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, where I saw this tag being done. So thank you to Andrew, and these are going to be the 7 Ajahs book tag. It should be a pretty quick one. There shouldn't be too many surprises here, but there might be the odd thing you've not expected from me. So let's jump straight in with the first of the Ajahs, and that is the Red Azure. Name a book with a protagonist that loves to keep the law. For me, this is going to be a read that I read last year. This is going to be the Greatcoat series by Sebastian de Castell. The first book being The Traitor's Blade, but the whole series I absolutely love. This is a very, very interesting series following travelling magistrates who are there to mete out the king's justice to the lords and the nobles as well as the commoners. I really love Falcio. He is our main point of view character, and he is the head of the Greatcoats. He is the first cantor of the Greatcoats, and he is the leader. He is trying to bring justice to this nation in the name of his king. And it is a really wonderful read, a really wonderful series full of swashbuckling and heroic speeches, but it's all about justice. And it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Moving on to the Green Azure. Now, the Green Azure in the Wheel of Time are the Battle Azure. So, name a book that has an epic battle or fight scene. Now, this was really hard for me because there are so many options I could go with, so many wonderful options, including some of these up here. I very nearly went with A Time of Courage by John Gwynne because I love the battles in there, but there is one particular fight scene that I just have to rave about, and let's go find the book that it's in. It is in here. Book 2 of the Stormlight Archive, Words of Radiance. It is a fight that happens about 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the way through. It's absolutely astounding. It is a duel scene, and it's just so flipping good. I have to just tell you to go and check out Klaus's most recent video on Words of Radiance, because your head might just explode. For me, as a Sanderson fan, I watched it and I could not believe what Klaus was saying. So go and check that out for the Words of Radiance reading vlog. So next up is the Grey Azure, and this is a book that you have either recommended or have been recommended and you have loved. For me, this is going to be books by the author Nhi Vo. The first one, and the one I love most, is The Empress of Salt and Fortune. This is an author and a book I had never heard of until Bookborn's video saying that basically you should go and read it. And I absolutely adored The Empress of Salt and Fortune. It is one of the very, very few novellas where I have given 5 stars. I think Nhi Vo has an incredibly interesting writing style, and it's a beautiful, beautiful little story. Absolutely adore it. So thank you, Bookborn. What a great recommendation that was. Question number 4. So this is the Brown Azure, the Library Sisters, the boring ones who like to sit and read their books. A little bit meta there, maybe. Name a book with a library setting or a story within a story trope. For me, the most recent book I read with an interesting library setting was Into the Labyrinth by John Bierce. It is the first book of the Mage Errant series. It's a self-published, I think, YA-aimed fantasy series. It's got the magic school trope as a heavy part of that, but in amongst that is an amazing magical library that we get to see in the first book in quite a lot of detail. It's one of the most interesting depictions of a magical library in a magical school setting that I've seen. I really, really liked the way that John Bierce did it, and I would highly recommend that if you want a magical school setting, slightly more YA, but if you particularly want a magical library that is just astounding, go check out the Mage Errant series. It will be for you. Next up, we're on to the Healers, so the Yellow Azure, and this is a book that has helped you through hard times or that makes you feel happy. Now, this was a book that I don't think you guys are going to expect me to pull out, but is this one down here by Charlie Maxey, and this is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, and this is an absolutely adorable book. It is I don't even know how to describe what it's aimed for. I was going to say it's aimed at middle grade. It's aimed for everyone. Kids, adults, everything, yeah? It is an absolutely wonderful book. If I just show you some of the illustrations, as well as the story. It is just absolutely beautiful. I bought it knowing that I thought my daughter would love this as she's growing up, and it has some wonderful quotes in it, some wonderful ideas that sometimes you just need to hear, and it's just absolutely adorable. So just to give you a rough idea from very early in the book, this is the mole saying, "Well, hello," to a piece of cake, and he says, "Do you have a favourite saying?" asked the boy. "Yes," said the mole. "What is it?" "If at first you don't succeed, have some cake." "I see. Does it work?" "Every time." And basically it goes on like this with fun, cute quotes, beautiful illustrations, but as well as that, it has some absolutely incredible quotes, what people need to hear. It's not just funny, it is heart-rending, and it is heartwarming, and it is life-affirming. And I would highly recommend picking up this book. It is absolutely beautiful, and you guys should read it if you need something to pick you up on a tiring, downtrodden day. You should read it. Next up, the Blue Azure. We're looking for Moraine's Ajah. This is name a book with a good versus evil theme. Now, there are two books I'm going to recommend here. Both of them you might expect from me, but I just feel like I have to point out both of them. So the first book that you really should have read is The Lord of the Rings. I've got the Fellowship of the Ring here. This is my wife's copy. It's old school. I quite like this cover. Very simple, very minimalistic. I love The Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, it is a fantasy classic. It is the fantasy classic, and if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend reading it. If you want to do that on audio, Rob Inglis does a great version of the audio book. I know that Andy Serkis has just released a version of the audiobook as well, which is apparently very good. If you are someone who might struggle with Tolkien's prose, maybe give the audio a go. But this book is just a wonderful, wonderful light versus dark, good versus evil story told in the best way. It is a classic for a reason. If we're going for the non-classic route, I would recommend The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. So this one is Malice. It is the Broken Bindings version of Malice, with the lovely sprayed coloured block sprayed edge. I really love this series. The Faithful and the Fallen is an absolutely incredible series. It is the debut series from John Gwynne, and in lots of ways you can tell that it isn't quite as refined and polished as some of his later work, but it is a good versus evil story through and through, and I like the way that he develops that and delves into that throughout the series, and how that develops and changes, and I just really love the way that he does that and the way he expresses this relatively classic good versus evil plot in an interesting and exciting new way. And the last question for the seventh Ajah here is the White Azure. Name a non-fiction book that taught you something. So the non-fiction books I've read recently, a lot of them have been history books, which are interesting if you are interested in particular periods of time. But the one I really want to recommend to you, maybe I didn't learn as much from, but it was an absolutely heartwarming and a life-affirming read, and that is Remarkable People by Dan Walker. Now, for anyone who's not British, you might not know who Dan Walker is. He's presented the football or soccer television programmes for a while on the BBC over here in Britain. He does the morning breakfast show on the BBC. He's a really interesting guy. He lives in Sheffield near me. I've bumped into him a few times around the place, and he is a really lovely guy, but he has met a lot of very interesting people over his time as a journalist. He's been involved in a lot of interesting things, and he writes this book telling stories of people he's met, and these aren't the well-known, the uber-famous celebrities that he's writing about. These are people who have maybe been on the news for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, and then disappeared into obscurity, but they just keep working for the good of the people around them. They are remarkable people, and it is done really well. For me, I love the way that Dan Walker writes. It is a really uplifting read if you want a non-fiction that is not going to be too heavy, but you're actually going to enjoy, and actually you get to see some of the good that people are doing in this world. A very, very enjoyable read that I read right at the end of 2021. Best non-fiction book I read last year, hands down. And actually last up, the Black Azure, which clearly do not exist. Name a book or series you secretly love but don't want to admit. Now, I don't have many guilty pleasures when it comes to books. I'm quite happy to tell you what I enjoy and what I didn't enjoy, and I'm not too fussed about looking a bit silly if people disagree with me. But I will say that a series that I didn't think I would love, that I thought might be a little bit just a little bit pulpy, it was the Black Fleet trilogy by Joshua Dalzell. Joshua Dalzell. Really good. It was not groundbreaking. It was not a really thought-provoking science fiction. It was not Adrian Tchaikovsky with Children of Time or Children of Ruin, but it was a really enjoyable crash through some sci-fi romp. Each of the books is only maybe 300 odd pages. It's a trilogy and it was good fun. I actually read all of 3 of them in about a week. So it was just a good, fun sci-fi romp. It didn't require too much brain power, but I really, really loved it. I am looking to read more from this author at some point when I get the itch for that similar kind of feel. I hope that's been enjoyable for you guys. If you enjoyed the video, give that like button a tap. And if you want to see more from me, here's another video that you can go and watch. Might be interesting.